Welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. I'm joined right now by a dear friend of mine, actually. She's labeled by the media as an unabashed, America-loving homemaker. Kimberly Fletcher is the president and founder of Moms for America. She's also the author of Women, America's Last Best Hope. She's a radio show host. She's a contributing editor with townhall.com. She's a woman with indefatigable energy, and I like to call her friend. Kimberly Fletcher, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It is so good to be here with you today. You are a friend.
You might think that you're an unabashed feminist, but in the true sense of the word, in other words, you believe in the feminine mystique, the supernatural power of femininity as opposed to masculinity, not trying to be like a man, but being more of a woman.
Absolutely. That was the historic term that everyone used when they talked about the greatness of women and the powerful influence that we have. So that is what I embrace.
Exactly. And so, and you had a big watershed moment on September 11th, as I think a lot of us did. But for you, it was more personal because your husband was working at the Pentagon.
Yes, he was stationed at the Pentagon. And the day before, my daughter had problems with her asthma. And so I took her to the doctor and they prescribed medication, and her ID had expired, which is attached to our insurance. So I called my husband on the way home and I asked him if he could take her to Quantico to get her ID card. And that's where he was on 9/11. But he was supposed to be in the very room where the very area in a room with a meeting with where the plane hit. And he the first plane hit on the way taking my daughter back to school. The second plane hit just as he had dropped her off, and he realized at that point in time that it was not an accident. And so he was heading to the Pentagon, but he stopped at our house for about 20 minutes, called into the Pentagon, watched the news for a little bit, and every single one of those things kept him from being there that very moment. And I will tell you, it changed our whole entire family's trajectory. And that was the day that I went from becoming patriotic to becoming a patriot, because I realized what the price of freedom was and I was willing to pay it.
And so tell me what you're doing now.
So right now, we are heavily involved in supporting moms across the country. I'm sure that you, as a mom, have seen this mom-led revolution going across the country, where moms are very upset, frustrated, and angry, justifiably, of what's going on in our children's schools. The four main things that really have them hot, and myself as well: the vaccine mandates, the mask mandates, the comprehensive sex education, the critical race theory, all of these things that are teaching our children to hate their country, hate their neighbors, and hate themselves, and put them in physical, emotional, and mental harm. And so we wanted to reach out to moms and help them realize the powerful influence that they have, and teach them what their rights are, where they come from, and how to effectively exercise them. So we have a program called the Cottage Meeting Project, and that is where we teach moms the story of America and the principles of liberty and the Constitution in a way that instantly resonates with them. We teach them what to fight for, so when they're fighting against, they're more effective. And so then we get involved in the fight. And of course, right now, we just launched a parent strike across the country to give moms something to do right now where they can have their voice heard.
What is that? What's the parent strike?
So we realized that we didn't have, or had little to no legal recourse when it comes to fighting back against the schools, the administrators, on the mask mandates. And political recourse, yes, I believe 100% that we are going to take elected office from school boards all the way up to Congress. But until then, we have a problem right now where moms are concerned about the safety of their children. They're being mandated to have masks to go to school. And so we needed to do something, civil disobedience. And so we're encouraging parents across the country, if you want to have a voice now, yes, continue to show up in the school board meetings, call your legislators, get relationships with your school board members. But in the meantime, while they're ignoring you, then you can strike. And so while we're waiting for that political recourse, we can keep our children home. So we're encouraging parents across the country, the first day of school, call the school and let them know, we entrusted our children to you. You broke that trust. And until it's restored and our demands are met, we will keeping our children home.
I I love it. Every day you keep your child away from the school is a day the school doesn't get funded.
That's right. If
So
you're not funding the school,
and
you're not funding the school board.
maybe you could just, you know what, Kimberly, you could um, expand that to be 1 day a week. Just take 1 day a week with your child. They're not going to like lose out in terms of, do a little bit extra homework with them for that day, but just take the day off. And whatever you do, don't go to the school and get the work from the school, because then the school will say, well, it was like the child was in school.
Yeah.
And I'm not actually, I'm not entirely sure how the funding works, but I do know that the funding's tied to the child. The funding of the school is tied to the child, which is funny because it's outside of that paradigm. It's not tied to the child. So if the child just leaves school, the funding doesn't follow the child. But while the child's enrolled in school, it's that. So anyway, yeah, they could strike 1 day a week and just say, no, this is our 20% that we feel that we can do to impose our will upon you.
Absolutely. And at the same time, even if you're digital learning, the attendance, the way it works is you have to be in school a certain number of hours. And I think it's 3 hours. And then you're classified as being attending, and then they get the money for the student. I know this because I'm military, and they always ask for military members, family members, because they get extra money if you are a military family. Know that there's all kinds of things that they do. So when military families step up and say they're not going to come, that's a powerful play. They're always hungering for us to come to their schools because it gives them more money. So anytime we can take away their money, we're making a
Why?
statement.
Are military children more stupid than other children?
I have no idea that they get money for that.
What? That is so random and odd.
I know. There are schools that vie for us to come to their schools because of that.
So I have coming on later in the show a young woman who is running for school board, who is fed up. She's a mom. She's fed up with the mandates. She's fed up with the overreach. She sent me a video of the school superintendent saying to somebody, they're talking about the rules, and he said there's a paragraph that talks about the CDC suggestions for protocols and whatever. He said, you might as well just strike that because we're making up our own rules now. And everybody laughed like, that's so funny. It's not funny, folks. They're not allowed to do that. No, and they have your tax dollars. They have your money that they're spending.
Well, worse than that, they have your children. We have a mom in Florida. Last year, she has a 7-year-old little boy, and he was in PE running in the heat and the humidity of Florida. And he pulled down the mask down below his nose so that he could breathe. The teacher yelled at him, made him put the mask over his mouth and nose, and then made him run laps as punishment with that mask on. That's child abuse. And that's the mom who rose up and said, no, and she started stop masking our kids. So we are having an impact, and the more that moms stand up and unite together and say, no, this is unacceptable, the more we're going to be heard. There are a lot of school boards who are changing their rules and their policies, or whatever they think the CDC's power is. And right now they're putting it all on the CDC. Well, the CDC says, or the county health administrator says. And so what we're doing is we're going into the school boards and we're saying, you have the power to say no. And we expect you to do that for the health and well-being of our children. And some of them are standing up and saying, okay, well, we're not going to make the masks be mandated. But there are some school boards that just won't budge. We had a whole bunch of moms that were involved in Tennessee just a couple of weeks ago. Thousands of parents stood outside the school board and they were chanting outside, no mask mandates, no mask mandates. And the school board passed it anyway.
Yeah.
So we're being ignored. Yeah.
Sorry to say.
We're going to replace
that's
them.
what floats their boat. They're like, yeah, we showed them. That was fun.
They shall be replaced. I'll just say that.
Well, I hope so, but I'll say in my great state of Florida now, DeSantis said there will be no mandates for schools. And if you mandate in your schools, then the state won't fund the school. Like you won't get money from the state. And Biden just stepped in and said, well, the federal government will send them funds.
So yeah, so the the president of the United States has no authority, whoever they are, to mandate that anybody does anything or does not do anything. All they can do is bribe and blackmail with the money. So we need to get rid of the Department of Education so they have no money. And in all honesty, the little bit that they give comes tied with so many legal restrictions that it costs more to receive it than it does to just reject it. So I would encourage school districts across the country reject it. And where is this monopoly money coming from anyway that the federal government is going to pick off the money tree and send to these states? It doesn't exist. So we need to make this about local. And finally, after 15 years of me saying it's all about local, people, they're getting it and they're realizing the power of the school boards. There's nothing more local than home and family. And the very next thing is the school board. And now we see moms and dads actively, especially moms, getting engaged and realizing the power of that. And they are running for school board. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that moms in the communities know who these school board candidates are, so that they can elect people that are going to protect their children and make sure that they also protect their constitutionally protected rights.
Right. So I have a last question before we plug a couple of events that you have coming up. I just want to ask you this because parents struggle with, critical race theory being taught in our schools. This isn't just about the masks. This is about there's a ton of stuff that's being taught in the schools, and the parents are going to these school board meetings and they're railing against what the school boards are enacting in our schools in terms of teaching. And so I have a little bit of pushback on that. And I'm all for parents going in and fighting in the school system, but I'm not for children being subjected to things while the parents are fighting against those things, because it
Right.
sends the wrong message to the child. And because it's bad for the child. If it's bad enough for the parent to go and try to fight it, it's too bad. It's bad and it's worse for the child, right? And
Yeah.
my pushback is this. If you think that the problem is CRT, or the problem is the masks, or the problem is the 1619 project, you've missed the boat. The problem is the system that allowed those things to rise and come to the forefront. And you're too late. You're too late
We
because
walked
those
away.
problems are just symptoms, and you're not really going to the source of the problem, which is the system itself and the degradation that has happened over decades. This isn't new. This is just the next step in a very long line of the decomposition of education in the United States.
Yeah, you remember when Common Core was like the big buzz, and all the moms were going out and showing up at the school board meetings and fighting back, and they thought they won, and then they went home, and I'm like, what did you win? All of the textbooks have already been completely conformed to promote Common Core.
Right.
So our children are still getting Common Core. And I was watching a school board meeting on video in Ohio a couple months ago, and all these parents showed up and like clockwork, they got their 3 minutes one after another, and they were great for 45 minutes. And then the chairman said, okay, that ends the public comment section of the meeting. And all of those parents got up and left, and the meeting went on for another hour and a half, and I'm like, my head was going to explode. I'm like, do you not realize what's going on for that hour and a half that you just walked away from? And that's our problem, is that we walked away, and we're like, okay, our kids are in school, we've got our me time, we're doing our things, it's all good. And this is the results. You're not going to turn this around overnight. And even when we get members, parents, active citizens who are concerned about these things into these school board positions, they are so bullied by the school board association and the teachers unions and indoctrinated in that level that they think, oh, this is how you're a good school board member, because that's how they're trained. So we have to be able to be on the front lines constantly, and that doesn't mean that we have to be at every school board meeting or give up our lives to do this. We just have to have the branded t-shirts. And one of us shows up in proxy at every board meeting. And anytime there's something that happens, we call in the mom mob and they all show up. But everybody takes a turn being there. But what the school board sees is the brand, whatever the brand is, whether it's Moms for America, Pinellas County, or Moms for Liberty, or Moms in Action, whatever it is, we encourage them to make it about moms and make it about local. Get the same t-shirt, everybody get it, and then they see the same person even though they're different people. That's a powerful thing, very simple thing to do, but then we are there all the time from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting.
Right. You've heard the adage that and I can't remember who said it, but if they won't vote for me, then I'll just import new voters, basically. And I think
Yeah.
that one of the things that we need to focus on is we need to replace the people who are voting on the school board the wrong way. They're not voting for the kids, they're voting for power. And those people need to be replaced because they shouldn't be in seats of power. Kimberly Fletcher, you have at least one big event coming up. Tell us about that quickly, and then we have to go.
Yeah, we do. So we have our Mom Rise conference. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We have great speakers. Lee Greenwood is kicking it off. You're one of our awesome speakers who's going to be there, you and Kevin. And this is an opportunity for us to unite together as mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, coming together in the spirit of sisterhood to stand united and declare that truth is self-evident. Family matters. Freedom is worth fighting for. And we will give the tools, the resources that moms need to be effective in their own homes and communities. And I promise you will come, be informed, encouraged, and you will leave empowered.
That's awesome. Kimberly Fletcher for Moms for America. You can go to momsforamerica.org for more information on everything that we talked about, including the Moms Rise conference that's coming up in Orlando at the first weekend in October. And I will be there. Thanks so much for coming on the Sam Sorbo Show. Don't forget to go to my TV show on Epoch TV or Epic TV. It's at the Epic Times news site. They are a great paper, and you can watch my show called School's Out with Sam Sorbo, all about how our education has gone so wrong and what you can do about it. And thank you for your support there also. Really appreciate it.